Hello, Dr. Sushma Singh this side. Today we start Unit 14, the working class. Some level of inequalities has existed in all societies since time immemorial. All societies have been stratified in the sense that all valued resources such as wealth, income and power has been unequally distributed. But inequalities were neither similar in all societies nor in all epochs. In medieval Europe, societies were divided into order or estates, resulting in groups of people known as aristocracy, peasantry, burghers, and church. Each group had prescribed roles and associated legal rights and duties. At other places, slavery was widely practiced. Within slaves virtually had no social rights. In our own country, as we have learnt earlier, society was traditionally stratified into castes. The caste groups enjoyed different degrees of religious purity and pollution. The remnants of stratification based on caste are still visible, though in a modified form. The industrial revolution took place in middle of the 18th century in England. This led to wide-ranging changes in society. It introduced new concepts such as industry, secularization and community. New forms of stratification based on class became prominent during this period. Though the term class itself was not new, it acquired new meaning with other emerging concepts. This system of inequality was clearly different from older and known forms of stratification. First classes were open, whereas estates or castes were closed system. These were no legal or religious barriers which prevented the mobility of the individual in class hierarchy. In other words, class position could be achieved rather than being ascribed. Second, members of all classes have the same legal rights and duties. In effect, all were judged by a same law and court. Finally, unlike older forms of inequality, economic success was the sole criteria for determining class position. In older system of inequalities, individuals were grouped together in categories which were polar opposites. Hence, there were lords and serfs, master and slave, and in our own society we had pure and impure castes. Similarly, in class-based stratification also there were bourgeois and proletariat, Marxian terms. A careful analysis reveals that membership in all such groups were essentially determined by economic relations. In Marxian terminology, relations of production determined the class position, that is, those who own the means of production and those who sell their labor for wages. This brings us to the focus of this unit, that is, to discuss those who sell their labor in class-based society. Such people have been labeled as working class. However, Marx himself never used this term to denote them. Now let us move to the next topic, defining working class. The question who and what is working class is not an easy one to answer. There are several reasons for this. The working class is not a cohesive entity, and it has numerous differences and contradictions. There is a problem of where to draw the line, who belongs to the working class and who does not. The difference further extends in terms of skill, sex, age, and income and caste. Hence, the working class is a complex, contradictory, and constantly changing entity. But it is an entity. In other words. There is a group of persons denoted as working class who are not just a sum of people, even though there are differences and contradictions within the working class. They need to be recognized and analyzed. So then, can we have a single definition of working class? The answer is that one cannot have a single definition which will be all inclusive. This is because of the blurring of boundaries between classes and the different working class. For example, a worker in 1970s is not the same as the worker in 2005. That is, composition, the size and the character of a class changes over a period of time. Therefore, the requirement is of a series of definitions which have to change in accordance with the changes in the social structure. In the Marxian scheme, the capitalist society is characterized by two principal classes, bourgeois and proletariat. Bourgeois owns the means of production and proletariat sell their labor for wages in order to live. The Marxist meanings of these terms have been specified clearly by Engels in the footnote to the Communist Manifesto. By bourgeois is meant the class of modern capitalists, and by proletariat the class of modern wage laborers. Hence, bourgeois is synonymous with the capitalist and proletariat with the working class. In recent years, the Marxist view on the working class has been countered essentially by two views giving contradictory analysis. The first view is that working class is literally disappearing with the automation of industry and apparent displacement of blue collar jobs. The working class is fast shrinking in size. However, the fact is that it is not the working class as a whole that is disappearing, but blue-collar workers are disappearing. The second view states the opposite. In this view, all society is becoming working class. That is, students, teachers, blue-collar workers, white-collar workers, and salaried employees of various kinds are all workers. The working class is not disappearing by elimination, but is in fact expanding with everybody joining it, except a few capitalists at the top. This view emphasizes the so-called blurring of the class boundaries but overlooks the important social distinction between the classes. Moreover, those distinctions are still very much prevalent in society. However, the question still remains, who are the working class? As M. Holstrom puts it, people commonly refer to industrial workers and sometimes other kind of wage earners and self-employed workers as the working class. Usually this means a group which share similar economic situation which distinguishes them from others, like property owners, employers, and managers. It suggests a common interest and shared consciousness of these interests. This implies that, like other classes, the defining feature of working class is their understanding of a common interest and shared consciousness. However, in recent times, these two concepts have become difficult to actualize for the working class due to their own internal divisions and diverse socio-economic and ethnic backgrounds. It is worthwhile to ask that, given multiple divisions and subdivisions among the working class, such as the organized formal or unorganized informal industrial workers, casual general laborers, the self-employed and small peasants, does any type of common interest exist? Or are various type of workers different classes with different and conflicting interests? Or do these classes think or act as if they were classes with distinct interests either in their everyday life, at work, or at home? It is difficult to find answer of these questions. The reason is that the consciousness per se becomes a tricky word when used for working class consciousness. One of the problems in dealing with the working class is that one is dealing with people who do not have vocal or written expressions of their ideas and beliefs. Even in labor movement or in trade union movement, it is the non-worker labor leaders who make speeches, not the workers. The other element is that the working class is a totally that goes far beyond the ordinary intellectual view of consciousness. It is an objective category. The usual way of viewing consciousness is in terms of formal statements of belief. However, in terms of working class and its living reality, this simply does not work. The problem is compounded by the fact that studies of the consciousness tend to assume that consciousness is overwhelmingly a matter of mind, of verbalization. A worker, however, does not have a public platform or press. Hence, the verbal responses to formal questions, given the limited range of alternatives allowed to workers in such situations, inevitably give a picture of working class consciousness that is much more conservative than the underlying reality. Here we want to close this lecture. Thanks for listening.